Hello folks, Luinog Yaskafen here again, joining you from the cold Canadian north. Pretty cold out, yep. The polar vortex, pretty crazy. So I wanted to continue talking about The Road to Wigan Pier by George Orwell. Some more of my thoughts on particularly the second half, which I think was chapter 11 onward. There's something to be said about the about industrialization and mechanization, and just how far it's gone in the last 80 or so years. As Orwell pretty plainly put it, that even back then there were concerns about what mechanization and automation could do for society as a whole, and what that would lead to, and how the end result of mechanization and automation would end up being socialist utopia, basically. That's fine for everyone who wants that. But yeah, you know, they say a man can't live by bread alone, and there's no nothing good can come from just eating and screwing, basically. I know I find that a little too much. What can I say? What can I say personally from what I've seen in my position? They're already taking over amenities and whatnot you see in grocery stores now. The self-checkouts, yeah, those are easy and whatnot. And they could certainly, with their AI technology they're working on, expand that to, yeah, you see the driverless cars. They could come out with driverless trucks and buses and whatnot for public transportation. But I don't know, there's consequences to all that, and the way I see it, if it doesn't all get rolled out at once in like worldwide, basically, or like basically they'd have to take away everyone's cars and whatnot to be able to do this, because you'd think that all these vehicles would have to sync up simultaneously, just so that they're all communicating on the same, so that there's no chances. Because if there's going to be any humans involved in any sort of transportation, they're always going to find some way of screwing it up, right? No, I don't know. I don't particularly support the hyper automation of every single field. I find that to be a little bit irresponsible, basically, because, you know, what I believe, and what Orwell actually brought it up in one of the chapters here, is that everyone finds a hobby, everyone finds something they really want to do. And say a mechanic might love to write, and then you might have a writer who would like to, who wishes he could operate a crane or something. And I have that myself. There's other things that I could see myself doing that I'm not doing right now. Well, I work in the trades, but I have this inclination. I'd like to be a farmer. I would be a farmer if I really could, but it's just not possible, right? Just like I can't be a boat operator or some kind of cruise ship driver or whatever out in the middle of Saskatchewan in the Canadian prairie, hey? Yeah, there's all sorts of things, right? So I found the mechanization idea quite interesting, and how it could lead to bigger societal problems. What else was I looking at here? That one. He goes into talking about religion. I'm not going to really touch on that. So there a lot can be said about what could push people away from socialism. And I think it boils down to education, perhaps. You know, me, I used to be quite the socialist myself. In my youth, when I was a little younger, maybe 10 or so years ago, I didn't know anything, hadn't read anything. I only saw a world through a certain narrow lens, and answers that are seemingly easy to come up with don't fully take into account all the nuance and other conditions needed. There's only a finite number of viable solutions, to quote Jordan Peterson or whoever came up with that first. But so for me, it was definitely reading and listening. The podcast era, the golden age of audio, as some are starting to call it. I got a lot of throwaway time, so to speak. A lot of what I do doesn't exactly require a full level of intellectual, how would I put it, focus. So what I like to do, I like to listen to audiobooks while I work. Podcasts, definitely. Lectures. It's great, and I like to read on my spare time too. However, what I wanted to read to you is one of the last paragraphs here, but I definitely recommend people pick this book up and read it. Try and wrap this up here. Okay. Once again, here am I with my middle-class origins and my income of about £3 a week from all sources. For what I am worth, it would be better to get me in on the socialist side than to turn me into a fascist. But if you are constantly bullying me about my bourgeois ideology, if you give me to understand that in some subtle way I am an inferior person because I have never worked with my hands, you will only succeed in antagonizing me. For you are telling me either that I am inherently useless, or that I ought to alter myself in some way that is beyond my power. I cannot proletarianize my accent or certain of my tastes and beliefs, and I would not if I could. Why should I? I don't ask anybody else to speak my dialect. Why should anybody else ask me to speak his? It would be far better to take these miserable class stigmata for granted and emphasize them as little as possible. They are comparable to a race difference, an experience that shows one can cooperate with foreigners, even with foreigners who one dislikes, when it is really necessary. Economically, I am in the same boat with the miner, the navvy, and the farmhand. Remind me of that and I will fight at their side. But culturally, I am different from the miner, the navvy, and the farmhand. Lay the emphasis on that, and you may arm me against them. If I were a solitary anomaly, I should not matter. But what is true of myself is true of countless others. Every bank clerk dreaming of the sack, every shopkeeper teetering on the brink of bankruptcy, is in essentially the same position. These are the sinking middle class, and most of them are clinging to their gentility under the impression that it keeps them afloat. It is not good policy to start by telling them to throw away the lifebelt. There is a quite obvious danger in the next few years. Large sections of the middle class will make a sudden and violent swing to the right. In doing so, they may become formidable. The weakness of the middle class hitherto has lain in the fact that they have never learned to combine. But if you frighten them into combining against you, you may find that you have raised up a devil. We had a brief glimpse of this possibility in the general strike. Well, that is one of the paragraphs I wanted to read to you. I don't think I'll read any more. in the book. But I've really thought a lot about that paragraph, and what I can say about it is I see that right now. The book was written 80 years ago, and Orwell, if you've read him, I'm only a couple books in on him, but he has his way of I don't want to say tell the future, but that very much seems like how it goes. It's brilliant, absolutely brilliant, and all of his books, so I recommend them. 1984 was quite frightening too. Did not enjoy the ending, the last chapter of that book. So to conclude, you hear this frightening call against fighting fascism and whatnot, and just the general attitude of the way so-called socialists are trying to present and push socialism on the rest of the population, and it doesn't work, and it's right there in this book. Just reading this book, it just opens a lot up. And you know what? I'm gonna read his other book, Down and Out in Paris and London. I'm gonna start that probably tomorrow. But that's my perspective, coming to you unedited and unadulterated. Whatever. Have a good day.